Hey there everybody, welcome to Tucktuk's Trinkets and Terrain. This week's build is a bit of a speed build, you could say. This past week I was actually in California visiting family, so my craft time was cut a little bit, so I needed something quick and easy that I could do. And I settled on taking these old aquarium plants that I've had for a while and elevating them a little bit. They're just these simple rocks that I was very lazy and just painted a tan, so I ended up making some cooler bases with some shells I found while I was in California as well. So yeah, nice and easy build, nothing too elaborate. As you can see, I made a bunch of different ones. So let's get into it. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you enjoy. So to start things off, I grabbed some scrap chipboard and cut a bunch of randomly sized ovals from it. And then to add some thickness to each of these bases, I grabbed some dollar store foam board and just hot glued all my ovals straight onto it, and then proceeded to cut those out once the glue was fully hardened. This is just easier than trying to measure and cut out all the foam board separately and then glue the pieces on after they were cut. I then took a sharp knife and extended the blade to bevel all the edges of each of my bases to make them a little more seamless with whatever terrain this might go on. After I beveled all the edges of all my bases, I grabbed some scrap XPS foam and used my knife to carve out some different shaped boulders and things to add a few more extra details to my bases rather than just the plants themselves. Nothing too crazy here, just using my blade to shape each of the boulders, and then added some hot glue and glued those on to a bunch of my bases. Left a couple blank just to add some variety. I then gave my boulders my basic paint job with some gray, light gray, and khaki. Nothing too fancy here, just wanted to keep it simple. And then these are all the shells that I gathered while I was in California. You can see I tried to get a variety of colors and different shapes and styles. Clearly some of these are much too large for what I'm trying to do, so I set those aside for a later project. And then I just kind of picked and choose different shells, placed them on in some positions that I thought looked good, and then just used some tacky glue to finalize those positions. Now these are the aquarium plants that I was talking about. I got these off of Amazon, I think, a couple years ago. And like I said before, I was super lazy with these bases, just painted the rocks they came on, just a flat, like khaki color. But these are super cheap. I want to say it was like $11 or $12 for like 24 of these or something like that. Obviously these aren't super realistic in terms of plants, but they definitely register to, I feel like, anybody as underwater plants. So they pop right off the bases, nice and easy. And then it was just a simple matter of poking some holes into my foam and hot gluing them on. I did have some plants left over that I can use as sort of single plants. I thought that would be nice instead of having a bunch of these larger bases with multiple plants on them. That way I could kind of pick and choose, just make it as flexible as possible. Here is all of the plants all glued on. Now next up is the messy part. So I used my old cookie sheet here, and then use my old cookie sheet as a basin. Use some PVA glue and a brush to spread it all over the bases, going up a little bit onto the shells and rocks, and then just use my basic sand material to flock these. Now I think this sand is actually for aquariums, or that's like what it's labeled as, so kind of appropriate in this situation. Now at this point I was all ready to call this done, honestly. I really like the color of the sand itself. I feel like it didn't need to be painted in any way, but I thought I would experiment a little bit with a blue wash. So after everything had dried, you can see these do look, at least to me, I think they look really good. Feel like they could be called done, but I have this blue metallic paint that I thought I would try to make a wash out of. So just grabbed a cup of water and with a little bit of the blue paint and a tiny bit of black just to darken it. I mixed that up. My thought here is that the metallic paint would give the bases some nice sheen, hinting at the underwater aspect of all these pieces. And you can kind of see on the video here that metallic pigment or whatever it is in the paint. Now this is very watered down, and you can see here it goes on pretty dark, pretty blue, but once it dries it's almost non-existent. There's the very hint of a blue, and unfortunately the metallicness didn't translate at all. I think it's just not enough paint in the wash. But I was pretty happy with the end result of this. I like the slight blueness of the bases now, and I didn't really have any time to experiment some more, so I ended up calling it good. For one last detail, I have all of these beads that I bought for some reason a while ago. I've literally never used them. I've had them for several years. They're obviously very specific to underwater things with the starfish and seahorses and different shells. But if there was ever a time to use them, now is it. So I picked out some random ones and then just used some tacky glue to stick them down to my bases, covering some of the thinner areas where the sand didn't stick as well, and just to add some nice color variety and different interesting features to all my bases. I tried to tuck them up underneath some plants to hide the holes on all these beads. To I would say satisfactory result. I could have been super ambitious and filled in all the holes with like green stuff or some sort of putty, but with how much time I had, I just figured it would be fine. Using a paintbrush here to smooth out all the clumps of glue to just make it a little cleaner in the end. Every base got one or two of these, just depending on the size. But for the seahorses, I thought it would be cool to have them sort of floating in the plants. You can see here kind of the idea of what I was going for. So on a few of the bases with the larger rocks and a little bit of hot glue, I just stuck the horses down on the rocks to give the appearance that these seahorses are sort of floating in these plants, which I think adds a really cool feature to these. Obviously the seahorses are very large for a Dungeons & Dragons scale, which is what I use these for, but I think it's pretty cool looking. I made 9 of these bases total. You can see here the finished results. As far as a speed build goes, I'm pretty happy with these. I could definitely put some more time to these down the road, make them a little nicer, a little cleaner, maybe try that blue wash again to a better result, but overall, I'm pretty happy to put these on the table, and I think my players will definitely translate these to being underwater. Here's a little bit of a scene I set up with the giant octopus attacking our party members in sort of an underwater valley of sorts, making use of all my new bases. Make sure you hit the subscribe button for more videos in the future. I post crafting videos every other week. Hit the like button, leave a comment, share this with your friends, all that good YouTube stuff. Anything you do really helps, and I do appreciate it. But more than anything, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope to see you next time.